Hello, everybody. Dan Lucas here from Credo, and today is day 14 of our 50 states in 50 days. And today we're talking about Vermont. And yesterday we talked about Rhode Island, so we're sticking in the New England area, and we are going to continue talking about some of these smaller states, and of course, some of the original states that made our union. Vermont was admitted to the Union on March 4th, 1791. And that was about 10 months after Rhode Island was admitted. So there was a 10-month lapse between Rhode Island being admitted and Vermont being admitted, for you history buffs. And Vermont actually has a decent amount of tax credits. And I think what I'm going to do today in doing some research on the tax credits is I'm just going to read the list and then I'm going to kind of go back and go through them. So this is going to be all of the tax credits for businesses in Vermont. So it's ways that they're providing incentives for more commerce, additional commerce in Vermont. And so we're just going to start right at the top. And the first credit is the affordable housing credit. There's the charitable housing investment credit. There's one's called the downtown and village center tax credit. There's the investment tax credit. There's the machinery and equipment tax credit. There's the qualified sale of mobile home park credit. That's unique. I've never heard of that before. There's a research and development credit. There's a Vermont Entrepreneurs Seed Capital Fund. Pretty cool. I mean, it sounds cool. And then there's the wood products manufacturer tax credit. So, a couple in there that we've, heard of before, or at least same terminology, and then a couple that I've never heard of before. Quite frankly, haven't heard of them in any other state either. So let's just go through these real quick, okay? There's not a ton of information on the Vermont website, but I'm sure there's more information as we dug into it, if we had to dig into it, and if we were looking at different forms that you need to file the credit and whatnot. Okay, so back to the beginning. The affordable housing tax credit. The credit amount of this is 25% of the qualified basis of the housing project. And let's see, you get to take this credit over the recovery period of 27 and a half years. Wow, so that's pretty, it's obviously a long period of time, but the purpose of the credit is to create or retain affordable housing for low-income people in Vermont. It's pretty self-explanatory as far as the terminology. Next, we have the charitable housing investment credit, and that tax credit encourages investment in eligible housing charities. It's determined, this credit is actually determined by the Vermont Department of Housing and Community Development in advance. And the credit amount is the difference between interest income that would have been received at charitable threshold rate and actual interest income accrued. Okay. Next one is the downtown and village center tax credit. And let's see, that one, it provides for three types of tax credits. A, historic rehabilitation tax credit. B, facade improvement tax credit. And C, code or technology improvement tax credit. So it looks like this tax credit is designed to stimulate private investment, create jobs, restore historic buildings, jumpstart revitalization in designated downtowns and village centers. So it looks like they're trying to promote, more central areas, right, where people can gather and do business or conduct business in little sub-economies within the economy. All right, the next one is the investment tax credit. The purpose of this one is to encourage investment in rehabilitation, energy, qualifying advanced coal projects, qualifying gasification projects, and qualifying advanced energy project credits. The project must be eligible for and receive the federal tax credit, so it's a double dip tax credit if you live in Vermont, federal and state. You have to receive the federal tax credit to receive the Vermont tax credit. Let's see, and the credit amount is 24% of investment tax credit attributable to the Vermont property portion of the investment. I'm not totally sure exactly what that means as far as calculation and dollar amount. I'd have to dig into that. But suffice to say, it says it's 24% of the investment. Okay. Okay. Now the next one is the machinery and equipment tax credit. This tax credit is for businesses that contribute substantially to the economy of a Vermont Rural Economic Area Partnership, termed REAP zone. Looks like they call these REAP zones. Again, that is Rural Economic Area Partnership. And qualifying businesses for this credit are A, located in a REAP zone, B, create, produce, or process tangible personal property for sale, or C, propose to make qualified capital expenditures. And it says on here, if you really want to dig into it to find out more, call the Vermont Economic Progress Council, 802-777-8192. All right, next one is the qualified sale of mobile home park. Never heard of this before? So this is new to me as well. The purpose of this credit is to encourage sales of mobile home parks to its residents. That is pretty self-explanatory based on the name of it. Or to a nonprofit organization that represents them in order to provide stability to the mobile home park community. Okay, now we know what it's for. And then for more information on the credit, again, you have to do a little more digging. And this one says to do digging in the Vermont Department of Housing and Community Development. It says the credit amount is 70% of the gain on a sale of a mobile home park that is subject to federal income tax for the taxable year. So it sounds like you're gonna be able to, whatever the capital gain is, they're almost kind of, it seems like similar to eliminating the Vermont capital gain on that. Okay, let's see, and the credit limit. Oh, there's some additional language here. It says the credit limit cannot exceed the Vermont tax liability. The credit is non-refundable. Okay, remember, refundable is better because refundable means you can still get cash even if you don't owe tax. This one's non-refundable, means that you can't take the credit beyond your Vermont tax liability. Okay, so it's the higher of 7% of the gain on the sale or however much you owe for Vermont tax. So conceivably, you could knock out your entire Vermont tax with this credit, but you just can't go beyond that because it's not a refundable credit. And any unused credit, so if you hit the limit, right? Let's say you have a credit of $20,000 and you can only use $10,000 of it in a year because $10,000 is your entire Vermont tax liability. That additional $10,000 that you can't take, you just roll it forward to the next year, and you can do that for 3 years. Okay, so that's really nice. Roll forwards are great. Okay, the next one is the research and development credit. And so this one, again, this is a double dipping credit. It is, if you're taking the federal R&D credit, so you have to qualify for the federal R&D credit. You can qualify for the state R&D credit on eligible expenditures made in Vermont. So if you're in Vermont and you are spending money on R&D expenses and qualify for the federal credits, then if you're operating in multi-states, that's something you have to keep in mind. Just because you're in Vermont doesn't necessarily mean that you can use the full amount of spending on your Vermont R&D credit or for your Vermont R&D credit that you use for federal. So it has to be spending in Vermont. A lot of companies spend a lot of their R&D in the state where they're domiciled, because a lot of times R&D goes on in the corporate headquarters or the central location of the business. But just something to keep in mind. So if you're going to be doing R&D, if you have a choice between doing it in your state, in this case Vermont, or some other state, do it in your state, or in this case Vermont. Okay, let's see. Oh, and then the last one is the Vermont Entrepreneurs Seed Capital Fund. Anytime you talk about seed capital and the word entrepreneur, you get entrepreneurs excited. Pretty confident in that. Anyway, purpose of this credit is to increase the amount of investment capital available to Vermont firms for their expansion. Pretty neat. The credit amount is the first $7.15 million of capitalization contributed by taxpayers on or before January 1st, 2020. There is a 4-year carry forward. Credit limitation. The lesser of 4% of your contribution or 50% of your tax liability prior to receiving the credit. However, the total amount of the credit taken over 4 years cannot exceed 20% of the taxpayer's contribution to the initial $7.15 million capitalization of the fund. This credit is non-transferable except from an involuntary transfer of interest in the credit. Well, that's a mouthful. What in the heck does all that mean? Okay. So I'm reading this in that this is, to me, this looks like if you are starting a fund, okay? So if you're starting a fund, and let's just say it's a PE fund, a private equity fund, um, you can set up a fund for seed capital to entrepreneurs based in Vermont or small businesses needing seed capital in Vermont. The first 7 million that you raise, and they're using the word capitalization for that. If you, it says contributed by taxpayers. I don't know if that means Vermont taxpayers. I need to check that out. But it says the first 7 million contributed by taxpayers. You get the lesser of 4% of your contribution or 50% of your tax liability prior to receiving this credit. So what I think this means is if you invest in these companies, like if you invest in a fund, so let's say somebody starts a seed capital fund in Vermont and I were to put money into the fund, these tax credits and these tax benefits would flow through to me, okay, as a member of this fund. Now, the fund could take on the credits, but a lot of times these funds are set up in a way to where I'm investing in the fund gets the credits, and then they just distribute it out to the partners. And in my example, or in the example I gave you, I would be one of the partners. It would just flow through to me. So if you can raise capital, and that's the kind of business you're in, this might be something you want to check out. I don't know what the seed capital investment entrepreneur market looks like in Vermont. I'm kind of curious now. I'd like to know more about this and probably will follow up more on this. But also, if you invest in one of these, you can get some good tax credits. And it looks like you can get up to 50% of your tax liability. That's half, right? I mean, that's a duh, but that's half of your entire tax liability. So for a lot of people, that could be a big chunk of change. And some people love investing in startup companies. They might invest in their friend's company or maybe other family members. We had to read the fine print to see, what kind of arm's length they require in this. But that's pretty neat. I mean, this is something I would definitely be looking at if I was a Vermont resident and I was looking to either invest in a fund like this that was investing in startups, or if I was thinking of setting up a fund or starting a fund. Okay, so that is it for Vermont, and I'm not going to keep going on and on about Vermont, other than last time I said that my memories of Vermont was great apple picking and eating apples right off the trees. I know Vermont's not the only place that has apples, and Ben and Jerry's was a lot of fun. Oh, I've been skiing there too. Skiing was really fun. Gosh, where did we go? I can't remember exactly where we went, but it was really fun. I had no idea that the skiing was that good up there. It's very, very cold, or at least it was cold when I was there. But it was a ton of fun, and the people there were really great. I just had a great time. My memories of Vermont are very positive. So tomorrow we're going to talk about Kentucky, because Kentucky was the 15th state admitted to the Union. So now we're going to work our way west, okay? The country's expanding. Certainly way beyond the original 13 colonies, okay? And we're getting a little bit further along in our history. So tomorrow we're going to talk about Kentucky. Until then, thank you for watching this. And if you know anybody from Vermont, please shoot this over to them so they can see this. It might benefit them. Comments, questions, please put them in there. If there's anybody that needs some help with any research, we will definitely do that for you on a case-by-case basis. There's so much to go into in these tax credits that we can't go really deep in all of them. But if somebody has a specific request that we can help with, we'll do it for them on a case-by-case basis. All right, so until tomorrow, have a great rest of the day, and I will talk to you soon when we hit Kentucky.